All right, what is going on, everybody? It seems I cannot get a day off, especially this time of year. Some breaking news: the Nuggets have fired their all-time winning head coach, Michael Malone. He is gone. He is done. And this was reported by Shams Charania less than an hour ago at 1:27 Eastern Standard Time. And then a few moments later, they uh they fired their they fired their general manager as well. He was out, and it's a full clean house. The ownership just absolutely cleaned house. We're going to talk about this a little bit. Obviously, all the details aren't out there. All the speculation hasn't started yet, but I do want to talk about it a little bit. So if you like what I have to say, like the video. If you have your own opinions, comment them down below. If you just like the vibes, consider subscribing. So yeah, no days off. No days off for me. I'm joking, by the way, but uh, this is why I like the NBA. This is why I love this league, is because there's always something going on. There's always some BS happening, and this has really been a season full of, huh? That's how I would describe this season is, huh? What? What happened? Who? You know, this is the third firing, I believe, because we started with Mike Brown of Sacramento. Less than 7 days ago, Taylor Jenkins was fired from Memphis, and now Michael Malone has been fired from the Nuggets job. And a lot of this is just going to be me speculating and me just thinking about what goes through the mind of these people who make these decisions to fire coaches when it's not the coach's fault, or not entirely. It doesn't lie entirely on the coach. I've had my questions about the Nuggets all year. I made a video earlier this year, and it's my most viewed video, about the Nuggets and the Bucks. I never questioned their coach. I never questioned Mike Malone personally. I think every coach has their faults. Every coach has their problems. I think what what the Nuggets did and didn't do early in the season was just, I don't want to say knocking the rust off, but just stuff that happens when you're a championship team is you're going to have times where it doesn't look good, you know? Um, if I go through their schedule earlier this year, we can see how many losses they had early in the year, and they really picked it up recently. Um, they had two losses straight out of the gate. They won two, they lost one. They won one, two, three, four, five in a row. At the beginning of November, they lost a few, and they really haven't been on bad skids. There've been some bad losses here or there. They've dealt with some injuries recently. I've never been like, oh, Mike Malone's a bad coach. I think a lot of Nuggets fans didn't like him, but they didn't like him with a purpose. They just had their points because they watched the games every night. And I'm not a Nuggets fan, so I can't tell you how that feels, or what that is like dealing with Mike Malone. If you've been a Nuggets fan for more than 10 years, he's been the coach for 10 years. He's the winningest coach for the franchise, and he brought them a title. Obviously, in what year was that? 2023. So less than 2 years after he's won a title, he's gone. Um, what I can talk about, what I can't speak about, is a coach being mediocre or being just okay. As a Steph Curry fan, as a Warriors fan, um, I have to deal with Steve Kerr. I've had to deal with him for the past Lord knows how many years, and he's made some questionable decisions. He's made some questionable calls, but I think the important thing that differentiates a lot of these franchises from each other is willing to stay the course. Now, I waited to record this video a little bit just so we could get some takes from people in the NBA, reporters, um, guys who have takes. I shouldn't say reporters. I should say people that cover the NBA. I wanted to get their perspective on this, and the feeling was around the Nuggets in their franchise was it was a cold war going on. It was a battle of um, how do you say philosophies. You know, Mike Malone wanted to win now, and the team has been, I don't want to say trending younger, but they've wanted younger talent. And I'm always of the belief that when you have an MVP caliber player, Nikola Jokic, an all-time great player, Nikola Jokic, you should always be trying to win. And I think you can do both. I think you can bring in these role players, bring in these guys who are younger, who can help you, because it keeps the energy up. It helps you get through the season. But it seems as if the team wants to go not super young, but younger than what Mike Malone desired. Because Mike Malone's trying to win another championship. Once you climb that mountain once, you have to do it again. And it's sort of a shame that he won't be able to do it again. But I get where Mike Malone is coming from, and I also get where the front office is coming from. And to give you guys like a perspective here, to give you guys a perspective of what Mike Malone came to this team with. He started as the head coach in 2015, 2016. He was the I guess is it predecessor? No, he predecessor is the guy before. Um, the coach before him was Brian Shaw, right? And then the first season as the Denver Nuggets head coach, he finished the season. Mike Malone did 33 and 29, right? Following season, they broke 40 wins. Good stuff. Broke broke 40 wins again. Won six more games in 2017, 2018, right? And then they have a couple conference semis losses here. They finished above 50 wins um, in 2018, 2019. Couple semis, couple conference finals losses again. And then 2021, 2022, they lose in the first round, right? The next year, they improve their record, the regular season record, but they also win the whole thing. I I I think I think they had patience, right? This team had patience. This front off, not the front office, because they fired the guy in the front office. The ownership had patience, but to fire him at this juncture in the season with only how many games do they have left? I'll pull it up again. They have like 4 games left, I think, right? Go down to the bottom here. Yeah, they have 3 games left, and this is the same thing I said about the Grizzlies. Is I don't know what the point is of firing a coach this late in the season with, I guess the thought process is to get the coaching search started. But like to fire a guy now is like sort of, it always rubs me the wrong way. To fire a guy after he loses in the first round, after he loses in the second round, whatever, right? I think that's the fear, especially of this Nuggets team in particular. That's what differentiates them from the Grizzlies doing this, firing their head coach, is that I think the front office was scared, or not the front office, the ownership. I have to say ownership because they also fired the guy in the front office. Um, the ownership group was scared that Mike Malone might make another run to the conference finals, to the finals, and then they couldn't justify firing him. So you say, hey, wait, if we fire him now, nobody, it's going to be shocking, but nobody's going to be upset. You know, no, it's reasonable, I guess. You know, nobody's happy right now, especially the fans. They're on a 4 game losing streak, and you take the opportunity to fire a guy that you didn't like to begin with. I guess you know. I guess that's the thought process. Talking it out right now, that's the thought process. But at the same time, it's very hard to find a coach like Michael Malone. It is very hard, and I've I always kick around the idea, right? If I'm somebody in a front office, right? If I was somebody in front office, I would always look at who's out there before I fire a guy, because you might be regressing. And here's where it gets spooky. This is where I also would think differently if I was in a front office. Is Hey, Mike Malone was Nikola Jokic's guy. Nikola Jokic, three-time MVP, already an all-time great NBA champion, etc., etc. All the superlatives. That's Mike Malone is Nikola Jokic's guy. If you bring in some Joe Schmo coach who hasn't done anything, and Nikola Jokic doesn't like it, he might be gone. And I don't think Nikola Jokic thinks like that. I think he just wants to play basketball. But at the end of the day, he's competitive. He's ultra competitive, right? And I wouldn't be. This is always the conversation that comes up when there's instability. He might request a trade, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but you keep your eyes on the situation. They do have him locked up to the end of the decade. He does have a player option in 2027, 2028, so he's locked up for at least 2 more years. I don't think he's the type of guy to demand a trade. I just think he's the type of guy not to re-sign. If anything, he would just walk away. He would just walk away, you know? And at that point, he'd be 31, 32. He might gosh dang near retire. You know what I mean? So there's always that, but that's a conversation for a hell of another day. Um, but yeah, and to look at another guy who is involved in this, who's heavily involved in this team is Jamal Murray, and he's the only coach that Jamal Murray has known. 2016, yeah, he Jamal Murray literally got drafted the year Mike Malone took over. Only coach Jamal Murray knows. Um, yeah, they were both brought in the same year. Yeah, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. This is the only coach they've ever known, and it's that's tough, man. And you see what happened with the Milwaukee Bucks. They've gone through their own coaching carousel since Giannis's tenure there. Um, if I can look up the Bucks, they've had since um, Giannis has been there. They've had a lot of coaches, and obviously, I'm more speaking to um, what he's had to go through, Giannis. But he's had Jason Kidd, he's had an interim head coach, he's had Mike Budenholzer, he has Adrian Griffin, and now he has Doc Rivers. And you can see the turmoil boiling in Milwaukee this year, especially. So I'm not saying they're very similar situations, but these are things to keep an eye on in the sense of running through coaches with MVP players is not good because it shows you can't find the right guy, and sometimes it's okay to fail. It's okay to be bad for a season or two. Let the player get upset. I think the player rather get upset and have the same coach unless they explicitly say, "Hey, I don't like this coach," versus you just firing the coach that they've loved and they've won a championship with. Because you saw it at the Suns played the Bucks a couple nights ago, and after the game, Mike Budenholzer's leaving. He's literally walking to the locker room, and Giannis runs up to him, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" Da da da. He genuinely likes Mike Budenholzer, and I think it kind of turned him the wrong way that when they fired him, and now he's had Adrian Griffin, who in hindsight wasn't bad, and Doc Rivers, who will probably have another playoff whatever. But these are things to keep an eye on. Let's get back to the Nuggets real quick. Under Mike Malone, Nikola Jokic. Let's see here. Seven-time All Star, 2023 NBA champion, six-time All NBA, three-time MVP, Finals MVP, Western Conference Finals MVP, Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, NBA champion. Um, very underrated at times. Has had some bad years, had some good years, but that's the thing with the NBA. It's harder to trade a player than to fire a coach. To fire a coach is a snap of a finger, is a meeting, and you're done, and that's it. Um, they do play. Is that tonight? I think they play Sacramento tonight. Um, and then they got two more games, and that's on to the playoffs. Let's see. Yeah, they do play Sacramento tonight on ESPN. Damn. Yeah, and then they play Memphis and they play Houston. Um, I don't think there's much else to say, man. To talk about um the ownership also firing um their GM as well, um, Calvin Booth, um, made some really good trades to bring this team to a championship. I'm trying to pull up his thing here, his basketball reference page. Um, Give me 1 second. He's made some really good trades. I'm looking at the trades right now. Um, he took Christian Braun in the 2023 draft. He signed Christian Braun to a multi-year contract. He signed DeAndre Jordan. He signed Reggie Jackson. He signed Jalen Pickett. He signed Julian Strother. Um, Reggie Jackson, multi-year contract. DeAndre Jordan signed him again. Um, and he's made some great moves to keep this team competitive. Obviously, his latest signing was Russell Westbrook. That doesn't look like it's working out too well, but it's worked out well enough. And he was not the architect of this team. The architect of this team in the mid 2010s was Tim Conley, but he left for Minnesota. Calvin Booth takes over, and he brings them to the championship with his basketball acumen, I could say, and he brings in some really good guys like Reggie Jackson, like DeAndre Jordan, um, and those guys were very pivotal in winning a championship for the city of Denver. And to clear house like this is something you very rarely see. Um, and I'm looking at this right now. The team president and governor said this decision was not made lightly. We do it only with the intention of giving our group the best chance at competing for the 2025 NBA championship. That, excuse me, that's fucking bullshit. Don't say that. Don't uh, uh, I see through your lies. Don't say that. um, their governor slash president is Josh something. I can't read that last name, but you can look it up if you want to. Um, I think, and the other thing that was said was that they needed a change of personality, like the team, the culture of the team. I don't. There aren't it, people throw out these words, these buzzwords, right? These buzzwords like culture and this and that. I want you to find me 5 coaches that actually build culture. I want you to find me 5 that don't have a job right now. Because the ones that do build culture have a job. They have a job. That's all I'm saying. I mean, we can go through. I could tell you who builds culture here. Um, and they have jobs. That's the point. Um, we'll just go through the conferences really quick. Um, Kenny Atkinson in Cleveland builds culture. Joe Mazzulla in Boston builds culture. Tibbs, I guess, builds culture, right? Indiana, Milwaukee. Oh, I'm going to talk about that. Um, is it Jamal Mosley? I don't remember. Who is it in Detroit? Let me see. I really like this team. I can't even remember who their coach is. I apologize. Give me 1 second. JB Bickerstaff. That's what is. Pardon me. I always get those two confused. JB Bickerstaff in Detroit builds culture, right? Orlando Magic, Atlanta Hawk, See, but this is my point. This is my point. A lot of these top teams have guys who build culture, who bring in this culture, right? Um, None of these other teams in the East, Oklahoma in the Western Conference, Mark Dagnall builds culture. Ime Udoka builds culture. JJ Redick is building a culture. Obviously, Denver Nuggets without a coach, but Mike Malone builds culture. Ty Lue builds culture. Steve Kerr questionably builds culture, mostly leaves it to the older guys. Um, Finch in Minnesota builds culture, and then we go down to the bottom here. Jason Kidd, for what it's worth, built a pretty good culture before the front office blew up his team. um, yeah, and obviously down here at the bottom you have um, Greg Popovich, all-time great head coach, professional, all-time culture builder. But my point is, all these guys have jobs, and all these guys are on top teams. I want you to find me a coach that doesn't have a job that builds culture, like these guys and Mike Malone. Sometimes I question these owners that they don't know what the hell they're doing and they just like convincing fans just to fill arenas. Um, and that's all I'll say. But yeah, Mike Malone is gone. Um, they have an interim head coach taking over. I will find his name here in a minute. I do have it. Um, Dave Adelman, lead assistant, will take over as the interim head coach. First game tonight against Sacramento again. Um, yeah, what a crazy, crazy last like week. Basically, we got Taylor Jenkins fired and Mike Malone fired right before the playoffs start. So we'll see what happens with them. Um, Again, surprise video today. Supposed to be my day off. Wasn't my day off. Uh, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.